guys, it's Matt with Tips for Truckers here, and today this video is the 5 misconceptions about truck driving and truck drivers, I guess. So let's start off with the first one, and it drives me crazy. It's people that think that most truck drivers aren't, at least a little bit sophisticated, or they think we're all backwoods and this and that, and uneducated. Let me tell you what. The majority of the truck drivers that I know either have a college education, some of them have masters and PhDs, some of them dress up in suits and shirt and tie and everything while they're driving. I probably would dress up really well too, but I drive flatbed, I get dirty every single day. But the majority of us are very clean, keep our trucks really clean, very courteous, and we're pretty well educated. Almost every truck driver I know, if they don't have a college degree, they have some sort of skill outside of trucking, and it's just trucking is the most viable career for them. Now, the second misconception is something, if you're getting into trucking, you really need to understand. People think, oh, we just wake up and we just drive and maybe stop and eat lunch, and then we drive until we run out of hours or until we don't feel like driving anymore, and then we stop. It's not like that at all. We have e-logs, logbooks in the truck that will track when we're driving. We can only drive within certain parameters. I'm not going to get into that, but the thing is, it's not perfect every day. You wake up and you start driving, and then you keep driving all day and you get a full day of driving in. You stop and you load, you get traffic. A lot of times, you just don't have that long of a run, and you end up only having a half a day of driving. Then you got to stop at the customer and get loaded in the morning, wait to get loaded in the morning because they already left. That is very common. I'd say probably 1 in every 7 days of driving, maybe 2, you just get up, you start driving, and you keep driving until you don't drive anymore. That's a big misconception with people who are looking to get into trucking and just regular four-wheelers asking. Now, the third one is something that, I hear both ends. I hear people say, oh, truckers only eat fast food and they eat junk, and there's buffets everywhere at every truck stop and this and that like that. And I also hear the opposite of that, oddly enough. I hear, you could just stop anywhere and they'll magically have a great restaurant every single night, kind of like with number 2. People think, you just drive to the truck stop. A lot of times you can't stop at the truck stop, where really it's kind of in between. And it's not as bad as we're constantly eating fast food. We do have to, probably the majority of the time, but a lot of these guys are cooking in the truck. I know people who probably will eat outside the truck maybe 2 times out of the whole week. A lot of times their wife, or they'll make meals, a big meal, they have a big roast or something, they'll portion it, and things like that. So we can eat very healthy. Obviously, there's some people that don't, and some people that do, just like regular people with any other job. And I'd say, even with the average age of the lifespan of the truck driver being only 60 years, I still think that we are pretty healthy. I think a lot of that is due to the stress of this job, rather than, a lot of the habits. Obviously, there's a lot of habits that you can fall in, but really it doesn't seem like, from what I see, truck drivers are all that less healthy than regular people that are home every night. I think the thing is just the stress and not seeing your family and this and that and staying on the road, it just really screws you up. And that's one thing that causes our high blood pressure. Believe it or not, that'll make it easier to gain weight and all that. So it's somewhere in between. And the biggest misconception is when I first started, there was a decent amount of buffets out here. I rarely see a buffet at a truck stop anymore. It's just either fast food or like a Denny's or something like that, or uh, Tim Hortons or whatever it's called. Uh, so yeah, just they got different things to eat like that. But most of these truck drivers, they're not afraid to cook in the truck. I'd say I cook in the truck probably about 30% of the time, and the other times I'm going out. But I'm not eating junk at the same time all the time. You can still eat out, and even at fast food joints, they got some healthy options. So really, most truck drivers fit somewhere in the middle, make the best out of the situation. And much like number three, number four is people think it's one way or the other extreme, and that's home time for us truck drivers. Some people seem to think, and there are truck drivers out there, few and far between, that will stay out a couple months at a time and then be home for a week or two or something like that. But and then there's other people who think that we're home every other day or every night. That's very few. There's a decent amount of local drivers, but not really. The majority of us are over the road. And I'll tell you what, most companies' policies, and if you're looking into getting into trucking, be well aware of this. Most companies' policies is you stay out at least 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks you stay out, you get 2 days at home, maybe 3. Now, I'm lucky enough with my company, they're very flexible. I've never had an issue, but we're more personal. When you work for a big company, they're literally going to, in 24 hours or whatever, 34 hours, whenever your break is up, or, you were out for a week or 2 weeks, so you earn exactly 48 hours, and they're going to expect you to go out exactly on that 48 hours. That's a big thing with these big companies and home time. Where we work for a smaller company, that's more personal. You get lucky, and you can get it, a little bit more tailored to your personal situation. And that's the thing is, it's a big misconception is the amount of home time. But that's generally what we do. We stay out 2-3 weeks and we're home for 2 or 3 days or so. And unfortunately, we don't get to see our families, and that's just the reality of the situation. And that's probably one of the biggest things in trucking is everything's a trade-off, because it seems like people's families either say, we're not seeing you enough, or you're not making enough money. Well, you got to find somewhere in between, and that's a real big conundrum with trucking. So just be well aware of that. And this is personally my biggest, what I feel is misconception about truck driving. And oddly enough, it's with truck drivers. Truck drivers don't seem to understand, that other truck drivers are going through the same things they are. But also four-wheelers, this is a very big misconception, and that's that we are intentionally trying to screw other people up on the road. And unfortunately, time to time that does happen, but when you see, a semi pass another semi and they're going the same speed, it's because they're both governed at 65 mile an hour. It's not because they're trying to slow you down. Stop being a narcissist. It's not all about you. And we're not trying to slow you down. We're not trying to cut you off. Maybe we didn't see you. A lot of times when you're behind us and we can't see you, and four-wheelers will cut over on the right, and generally we're expecting people to pass on the left, so we're looking more in our left mirror for people passing. because that's where you're supposed to be passing. But for some reason, we'll be in the middle lane, and people will pass on the right with a perfectly open left lane. Very dangerous. We're not expecting it, catches us by surprise and every now and then. And it's harder to see out of your right side. There's a lot more blind spots on the right side than the left side. And I could just go on and on all day. But for the most part, we aren't trying to slow you down. We aren't all crazy in a super big hurry all the time. It's somewhere in between, and I think that's pretty much the gist of this whole video is trucking. Whatever misconceptions you may have or whatever you may think of trucking, just think of somewhere happy medium. Because there's some truth to all of these, and there's falsehood to all of these. Nothing's absolute in trucking. But we're really not trying to screw you four-wheelers and these other truck drivers. Don't take it personally if they make a bad move, because you made other bad moves plenty of times before. And you know, let's say you've been in a hurry, you've been this and that, you know, you've been, you know, just in a bad situation where you can't see somebody. Sometimes you cut them off. Hey, you know, I'm sorry, you know, didn't mean to do that. Rather than, you know, getting all worked up about it. And same thing with you four-wheelers. You just got to realize, well, we're not trying to do that on purpose. And I think that also contributes, like I said, there's a lot of stress with this job, and that's probably the number one thing causing the stress, is people just taking everything personally. Hey, you know, I always look at it as there's probably a good reason most people do things, so I never take anything personally. But anyway, that's top 5 misconceptions I could think of off the top of my head about trucking, and I hope you have a great day.